Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Sophie Erber. A second person now has taken a plea deal in connection to that deadly shooting in Sioux City earlier this year on New Year's Day. We have details right now in our top story at 5. 20-year-old Christopher Morales pled guilty to second-degree murder along with 4 counts of reckless use of a firearm. This in connection to that shooting earlier this year that killed 18-year-old Mia Critis. Morales originally pled not guilty to first-degree murder, but as part of his plea agreement, he will serve at least 41 years in prison. Today, Judge Dwayne Hoffmeyer revealed that Morales was the one who fired the shot that killed Mia Critis.
You shot Mia, is it
Critis?
Critis? Thank you. With a gun or a firearm. Secondly, that Mia Critis died as a result of being shot with that gun or firearm.
Though the terms of his sentence have already been agreed on, he will officially be sentenced on June 30th. And as we mentioned earlier, Morales is not the first suspect to take a plea deal in connection to that shooting. Earlier this month, 18-year-old Anthony Bauer also pled guilty to second-degree murder for his role. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison and will be eligible for parole after serving 35. 2 others are still awaiting trial in connection to that shooting. And Christopher Morales' 18-year-old brother Carlos is currently charged with first-degree murder and several firearms charges. He previously filed a motion to have his case moved to juvenile court because he was 17 at the time of the shooting. But that motion was denied. He's currently scheduled to stand trial starting in August. 20-year-old Liliana Gutierrez is also facing several weapons charges in connection to her role in that shooting. Police say she drove the other 3 suspects to the party and acted as a getaway driver. She's also scheduled to stand trial this August. Authorities say the 4 opened fire on a house party being held at a home on the 2600 block of Walker Street in Sioux City. Happened around 1 in the morning on New Year's Day. 4 people were injured in that shooting in total. And 18-year-old Mia Critis, again, she was killed. Some Siouxlanders are voicing concern tonight over conditions of the Memorial Park Cemetery in Sioux City. For nearly a decade now, visitors say they've noticed the conditions worsen at that park, whether it be potholes and cracks on the roads or just poorly maintained grass. Along with the tombstones, people there are looking for answers. Coming up tonight at 10, KCAU 9 News reporter Jason Toktagian tells us what officials say about these poor conditions and also why improving those conditions is so important to the cemetery visitors. Meanwhile, in Des Moines, their public works department there is using some new technology to extend the life of their roads. It's called microsurfacing, and it works by applying a mixture of Portland cement, rock, asphalt, oil, and water, applying that to the street and filling in the potholes and cracks. This material can last up to 12 years and sets up even faster than traditional concrete, allowing roadways to remain closed for shorter periods of time. And that's some good news there. Of course, the good weather in Siouxland means it is construction season
it sure
as well
is.
in Siouxland.
Everywhere you turn.
Although today, I don't know how some of the rain that's moved through mixes with that construction ongoing.
Yeah, that could affect things a little bit out there, Sophie. We have actually had some rain for a change. As we look at the radar, we've had some isolated showers and thunderstorms through the afternoon period here. And stopping the clock, looking a little bit closer into northeast Nebraska, that's where most of the strong thunderstorms have occurred. There is also a severe thunderstorm warning inside of that orange box on the western edge of those storms, continuing to pass through Antelope, Pierce, and Madison counties. That'll last until about 5:15. Expecting to see some large hailstones associated with that. Severe thunderstorm watches staying in effect until 9 o'clock tonight. If you are in the path of any of these stronger thunderstorms, you are encouraged to seek shelter inside of an interior room of a sturdy building. You want to pick the basement, the lowest level of your home. Avoid contact with electrical equipment and keep away from the windows. We have some more storm chances as we go through the coming days, and we'll have more coming up with the 9 on 9 forecast. Sophie?
All right, thanks, Scott. Well, the splash of rain today was nice. It didn't do much to help the drought-like conditions in the area, and that is why Sioux City Fire Prevention is asking the public to either skip those home fireworks or leave it to the professionals because of those dry conditions, especially out in rural areas where it could take even longer for a fire department to respond to you. And a Siouxland water tower that sat empty for nearly 2 decades is finally being demolished tonight. The water tower on North Derby Lane in North Sioux City was decommissioned officially in 2003 after the city replaced it with a much larger tower. The city says removing that tower has not been a priority, but now the scrap price of steel is so high, the city is actually making a profit off of that demolition. In November, in the election, the Laurel Concord Coleridge School proposed a $23 million bond. Well, now voters get a second chance to decide it. Since that last vote, officials have tried to work out some issues residents had with that bond proposal. In one way, changing the tax levy. Under this new proposed bond, the tax levy would be dropped from 11.5 cents over 25 years to less than 9.5 cents. The costs would contribute to a renovation that would eliminate a multitude of hazards in the building, as well as give the students some new school equipment.
My grandma and grandpa went to school here, my mom went to school here, and now I am. And I think that's so cool, but for it to continue with the generations, it's important that we have a school that is safe.
Laurel does all their ballots by mail, so if you live in the area, they say keep an eye out. Officials add they will be sending out those ballots starting tomorrow, Wednesday, and that you should see yours by this Friday. The deadline to get your vote in will be 5 o'clock at night on July 13th. That is a Tuesday. Iowa's 3 public universities are proposing a tuition increase. The University of Iowa and Iowa State University proposing a 3.5% increase. That's in undergrad resident tuition, while the University of Northern Iowa is proposing a 1.5% increase. The universities are also looking to raise mandatory fees and increase out-of-state tuition. The Board of Regents is set to meet up this Thursday to consider these increases. Meanwhile, an Iowa Community College says it is still in negotiation with the hackers who shut down their college's computer networks earlier this month. Des Moines Area Community College President Rob Denson says it does not look like any student or staff information has been compromised, but they did confirm it was a ransomware attack. Unfortunately, the college did not have to pay a ransom, and that has been able to rely on the college's insurance company to handle those details. That's fortunately. According to Denson, experts have gone through more than 6,000 DMAC computers searching for that malicious software. A busy I-29 off-ramp was shut down briefly today after a combine toppled off a semi-trailer and sparked a small grass fire. That accident happened around 12:30 this afternoon at exit 144B, heading east on the Highway 20 bypass. Now, no one was injured, but the combine did sustain some damage. The grass fire burned a small section of the median and was quickly brought under control thanks to a volunteer firefighter who happened to be passing by. State Patrol spent the morning doing some crash testing. You can see right there at the Iowa Speedway. State Patrol typically does this type of testing every year, and for 2021, they chose to focus on farm equipment. They say the training they did today helps them clear roadways quickly, which in turn makes accident scenes safer.
One of our biggest problems when we're investigating collision out here on the interstate or out on the highway is quick clearance. We want to open up that roadway as fast as possible so we don't have secondary collisions. And with that SUAS system, we have literally cut our investigation time, on scene time, should I say, literally in half, or if not to a third of what we are doing.
The training would also help in court cases in which traffic is a factor in the crash. The groups will go through one more day of training, and that is set for tomorrow. Some lawmakers in Washington, D.C. tonight have been trying for many years to close what they call the sentencing gap. We'll explain what that has to do with cocaine coming up.
And some severe thunderstorms are beginning to light up the radar. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch in place until 9 o'clock to the south of Sioux City. Some additional storm chances are coming soon. Your 9 on 9 forecast is too, right after the break.
You're watching KCAU 9 News with Sophie Erber and Chief Meteorologist Scott Larson. This is KCAU 9 News at 5.
The weekend is going to be really nice with highs in the low to mid 80s and mostly sunny skies. A small chance of an additional storm cropping up on Monday there with a high temperature of 79. And then we should be able to return to the 80s next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But again, we are keeping all of our attention on that severe thunderstorm watch. We have Victor Perez here updating our digital. So SiouxlandProud.com. You'll be able to get more information there as well as Facebook and Twitter.
That's right, and it's very unusual, at least for the last few weeks that we've had this weather. So when it comes, pay attention.
Yeah, the radar's been about as quiet as can be as of late, Sophie, so definitely a big change today.
All right, thanks a lot, Scott. Well, during the summer months, blood donations actually decrease at a time when they're often needed more. And this year, there's even more need for blood after the pandemic. So KCAU 9 News is holding a blood drive at the LifeServe Blood Center on Tuesday. That's June 29th. Help us save up to 3 local lives with just every 1 donation. You could sign up for a donation appointment if you'd like at the lifeservebloodcenter.org. Get ready to meet the country's first pickleball champions. Yes, we said it. More on the sport they fell in love with coming up. But first, crack and cocaine have had different sentencing guidelines for years, but lawmakers are fighting against that. We'll explain why after the break, so stay with us. Today, the Senate Judiciary Committee examines the Equal Act. That's a bill that would make federal sentencing of crack and cocaine the same. Democrats argue the sentencing gap must be closed once and for all to correct decades of injustice in communities of color especially. DC's Raquel Martin has more.
One of the most indefensible disparities in our system of justice.
Democratic Senator Dick Durbin says it's time Congress fixes decades of injustice by making the federal sentencing of crack the same as powdered cocaine.
Black Americans were 6 times more likely to be imprisoned on drug charges than white Americans. It has no basis in science. It's done nothing to make us safer.
In 2009, Congress passed a plan to drastically reduce the sentencing gap, but the change did little to fix racial disparities.
It's time to finish the job.
Matthew Charles was sentenced to 35 years in prison for crack possession before he was released early.
You know, there are a lot of people like me who are committed to making changes and finding a new path, and who don't need to spend decades in prison to learn their lesson.
Tuesday, the Biden administration backed the plan to make sentencing for both drugs equal. But some Republicans remain wary of taking that step.
But I do have some questions about how to best do this.
Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley says he's concerned crack offenders still pose a greater threat to public safety.
There are discrepancies in terms of recidivism rates, addiction, and violent crime. These factors can't be ignored.
But Republican Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, who's already amended crack and cocaine laws in his state, pushed back.
The substances are chemically the same, and therefore they should be treated the same for sentencing purposes.
In Washington, Raquel Martin.
Airlines want the Justice Department tonight to prosecute unruly passengers amid a surge of attacks on flight attendants. A letter to the Attorney General, a trade group, along with several unions, are all asking the FAA to refer to worst instances to the DOJ in hopes of deterring further dangerous behavior on planes. So far this year, the FAA says it received roughly 3,000 reports of unruly passengers, mostly related to refusing to comply with mask mandates. The U.S. has a pair of pickleball champions for the very first time. We're taking a closer look at that competition coming up next. There's a couple now on your screen that will have their names in the sports history books forever. Jared Smith and Cassandra Gerke are national champions in pickleball. They won the first ever national indoor championship in Alabama on June 12th. David Chasnoff has the story of love and pickleball.
Gerke and Smith earn the gold medal with a kiss.
Not all love stories include winning a national championship together. But for Jared Smith and Cassandra Gerke, this has been brewing since summer 2017.
We met on a pickleball court in a tournament in Michigan.
2 years later, he knew she was the one.
We got engaged on a pickleball court in a tournament in Illinois.
Watch out, behind you.
COVID-19 delayed their wedding date. So why not face another relationship test for old time's sake?
First ever USA Pickleball Indoor National Championships.
Tons and tons, hundreds of people there competing, and you're just working hard the whole time. And we had some downfalls, and we had to come back, and we just stayed after it.
Yeah.
12 teams were in their mixed doubles division.
We got beat earlier in the day
by their best friends. who are also from Springfield. They rematched in the finals.
When you're on the court in a national championship like that, you have to take all the relationships out of it. You have to pretend that you don't know them.
Okay.
But for the couples team, those rules go out the window.
The couch is always an option after a pickleball tournament.
Luckily,
Congratulations.
the 15-5 final score kept the couple on good terms.
That was probably one of the most amazing feelings I've ever had. To share such an amazing and incredible moment with the person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with it's pretty indescribable.
I don't cry very often. I was just so happy to be able to share this type of experience with a person I'm in love with.
Congratulations. Taking a live look outside right now at a stormy scene over downtown Sioux City from the Ho-Chunk Center. Scott returns next with your forecast. Stay with us. World News is up next, and for that, we will stay tuned. But first, let's check in with Tim for what's coming up at 6. Hi, Tim.
Hey, good afternoon, Sophie. Big news this afternoon out of the state's capital as an Iowa law requiring women wishing to have an abortion to visit a clinic at least 24 hours before that procedure. Today it was blocked permanently by an Iowa district judge. We'll have reaction to that decision coming up at 6. Also, Governor Reynolds has already said that she will be appealing that judge's decision. The law had been under a cloud since members of the Iowa House approved the bill in a late-night session after attaching it to another piece of legislation. And did you know the Civil War involved soldiers from here in Iowa? Also at 6, we'll take a look back at the state's involvement through the lens of the Iowa Gold Star Museum. And it looks like we're getting closer to a 12-team playoff for college football's championship. Jake will have that at 6 too.
Exciting stuff. We'll check in with you then, Tim. And we're also checking in with the weather because some fast-moving systems
Right,
today.
a couple of severe thunderstorms in place right now. One approaching Norfolk, a severe thunderstorm warning there. Another in Sac and Calhoun counties until 6 o'clock.
All right, thanks so much, Scott. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again at 6. And until then, have a great night, everyone.